Rich, I heard from another company today that they are currently using AI internally and had no idea what AI they were using. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that?
I think if I had a dime every time a company said they were using AI and reality it was just a bunch of their employees paying $20 a month for ChatGPT, I'd be as rich as Sam Altman.
Welcome to the show, where AI takes the floor. Lee and Rich on the mic.
Welcome to the AI Guys podcast, where we make artificial intelligence easy to understand for everyone. I'm your host, Lee Dixon, and as always, I'm joined by the cold weather connoisseur, Rich Swire.
Good to be here, Lee. I've got my designated hoodie today. It's I think it's supposed to be 70 degrees today, so it's a little bit of a cold front.
Fall has finally hit Florida, and it's going to exist for about 48 hours, and we'll be back into the 90s and sweating. It allows us to smell like mothballs for a couple days, taking it out and testing it out. So you're looking good, man.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah. Well, enough compliments. Right into the meat and potatoes of this. Today we're going to dive into some observations that we've made on what it takes to bring the power of ChatGPT into a business where you can build, train, and test AI agents for your teams to use. And Rich, I'm going to kind of let you take the reins on this one. I know for the last few months we've been working on a lot of kind of custom niche solutions here at Rhea, with clients coming to us with very specific use cases and having to kind of craft around that. But I kind of want to get back to some of the basics where a lot of these businesses that are now starting to look at AI a little bit more granular really are starting off with the fact that either those business owners or leadership have used ChatGPT and are like, how do I now get this into my business? Or they're starting to find out that maybe they're a little behind the curve because employees within their teams are using ChatGPT. So I figured we can kind of start there for those that don't know and that listen, kind of giving them some insight and maybe some aha moments that they could be thinking about.
Yeah. I mean, I think the best way to frame this is that, when they talk about businesses using AI today, I think it's for the most part their employees or them themselves licensing ChatGPT and kind of doing one-off prompting, upload a spreadsheet, ask it to do a report, or upload a document, give it a summary, or, hey, write this email to this customer. So I think a lot of what the use today is that very point of view, single user type experience that we all understand to be the ChatGPT experience. So the challenge is really going from that consumer-based kind of open-ended experience that you're talking to a generalized model that is ChatGPT to a more specialized experience within the firewall inside of the company where you actually want to train ChatGPT, for lack of a better word, to understand your business, upload information that can be shared across multiple employees, not just a singular use case, and also expand it into integrating into your systems and managing all this at the same time. And so it's almost like any sort of business / consumer dichotomy, you're taking something that everybody loves and enjoys. So you want to bring that, you don't want to lose that experience because it's what you want is adoption. You want people to continue to use it. You don't want to replace it with something that's ugly, complicated. Exactly. So how do you bring ChatGPT experience, quote unquote, into the enterprise? So I thought it'd be good to kind of talk. I think I kind of broke it out into three specific areas where businesses have to kind of be aware that there is a difference between how ChatGPT works and how you want it to work within your business.
Sure.
So the first one I think is assuming that the actual user interface, what I like to call the human user interface of ChatGPT, where you're just chatting, you're literally just typing in a prompt and it gives you a response. Assuming that all stays the same, there is a little bit of a difference that starts with, okay, great, I've got ChatGPT and it is trained on a general model, which is obviously taking a lot of information from the generalized public web, moving it into a scenario where actually I want to train this model on our own data, right? So every company has their own database, whether it be product information, support information, CRM information, all the
intranets, anything.
Exactly. All the information that lives and breathes either in some sort of shared drive in a cloud or on many, many different PCs of your employees. needs to obviously become part of that model. So the first step is really thinking about, okay, I've got this really amazing, what I call foundational model that ChatGPT has, and I'm going to now add on top of that my existing data. But of course, I want to do that within my firewall. I don't want to necessarily let all of that information be public.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where you kind of have to graduate into the OpenAI enterprises, which is what we built our platform on. And really the only difference between the consumer ChatGPT experience and kind of having an experience against OpenAI enterprise is that you can actually train your information on the model, and it's secure, it's encrypted, and it's not shared amongst the public for training future foundation models. And so that's one of the big things that a lot of people have concerns with is security. I know that's one of your big concerns. That you go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, everyone I think comes to us in early stages and gets really excited. And then they realize that, they're meeting someone like us for the first time and about to divulge all of their internal secrets. And just because they're really excited about AI, and then it kind of a lot of times pumps the brakes getting into the conversation of security. So, a lot of larger entities that we've started working with, I think, are coming to the realization that AI has permeated through maybe a lot of the lower ranks, early on with, horror stories I've heard about, John uses ChatGPT right now and he plugs the financials in and, gives us these great reports. And it's like, but you now released these financials into a trainable model. Now, granted, I can't go and say, tell me about Acme Corp's financials from Q4, but that data is living somewhere. And that's what, is, I think, concerning, especially to a larger business with the kind of exposure that they might be, receiving from where their data is going.
Yeah, let's unpack that a little bit, because I think there's this confusion that, amongst a lot of people on how OpenAI works. So the ChatGPT that we all kind of log into and use, the $20 a month consumer experience, even if you are using it for business, it's kind of your own version of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Everything that you put in there, your conversations and documents that you upload, unless you say not to, it can be used for future training. Now, that's exactly how ChatGPT builds out these foundation models. They have 100 million plus people using ChatGPT, uploading information, and then that's, of course, helping the model get better and better. In the OpenAI enterprise side, they do not do that automatically, right? So it's all firewalled, encrypted, and secured in your own cloud. Not too dissimilar to, like, if you use any SaaS product, whatever's in your SaaS product, like if you use a CRM system, your information is yours, even though it's in the cloud and it's being hosted by this third party. It's only in the context of your access. And so that is a clear distinction, is that they do not train on data that's used in the OpenAI enterprise, and by default, they do use it in ChatGPT. So one of the things that we always tell companies is that if you want to give your employees access to the power of ChatGPT, but you want to do it in a much more secured environment, you should be looking at solutions like us, because we provide that access to the OpenAI foundation model. Also provide you ability to upload your information, proprietary information, and have that secure, and give the employee the same experience they would have with ChatGPT without the security flaw of maybe they're uploading information that you don't want them to upload. So that's absolutely number one, is that you should have you should have ownership, and you should be working against your own model, and have your information segmented inside of that, kind of secured architecture. And that's like the number one thing that you should be looking at when you're talking about bringing the power of the ChatGPT experience into the enterprise.
And also not just for that. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, not just for security, but also to have ownership over that, so that you can continue to train it, you can continue to improve it, and it's yours. It's like an asset. Yeah. So it's not just because you want it to be secure. Of course, that's a big reason, but it's also because you want to have that. You want to continue to maintain it. It is really truly an asset that is going to pay dividends over time. So the second thing that I was thinking about how to transfer.
Before you jump into the second
go
thing,
ahead.
We're gonna power through a lot of this stuff today, and I want to make sure we get it all in. But one thing I do think we need to earmark on that as well is like the consistency of the experience within your organization. Like you were kind of talking about there, it's very important to know that I can spin up something in ChatGPT, dial it into what I think is really good, and then you try to mimic that and be getting maybe a similar result, but something that is different. But it might be based on like your prompting. So having the ability to have almost like your own siloed instance of the larger model that is now trained specifically on your business, you know that if I jump in or you jump in and start playing with that model, our experience is going to be much more consistent than if we're just going into our own ChatGPT accounts, billing that to the company, right? You know, and just saying like, oh yeah, just write this off, this $20, like it's going towards, you know, my tech costs per month. But knowing that you're now getting something that's secure, but also something that's very consistent across the board.
Yeah, that's a great jumping off point, because that's actually my number 2, which is
perfect.
The ability to the ability to package and basically build out your own AI agents. So,
yeah,
as I said before, the consumer experience of ChatGPT at default is really, you know, I have a version of ChatGPT and I talk to it. You have a version, but we don't actually share anything across that, right? Which is not really exactly how an organization works, right? We want to share consistent policies, processes, data, and so forth. So this is where AI agents come into the picture, where you can deploy an AI agent. Now, I might build the AI agent because maybe I'm the expert in, let's say, I'm on the project management team and I want to be able to upload meetings and notes and project statuses inside of an AI agent so that my entire team can query that agent to get critical information about the project. So I might build the agent, train it, and deploy it amongst the team. And then you might be on the team where you can actually access that agent, ask it questions. So this is really more of an environment where, you know, the business stakeholders and the business users are building out AI agents, which are essentially, you know, versions of their own ChatGPT, but trained on specific data. Now, ChatGPT has a very similar model, what are called GPTs, which is like you can go on there and create GPTs. Of course, the challenge with creating GPTs inside of ChatGPT is you're still under the context of being public and being trained on those models and the less of the security, as we just mentioned. But more importantly, you don't really have access to anything beyond that. So like you can't see the conversations. You don't know who's accessing your GPT. It's all very, very much lockbox, black box type of structure that ChatGPT
your
created.
threads are your threads, my threads are my threads, and
no, you don't even have. No, that's my point. In ChatGPT, when you create a custom GPT, you don't even see that. You can't even. You have no access to whoever's using your GPT. So that's why.
Yeah,
again,
it's just out there being utilized, but with no visual.
Yeah, bringing it into the organization side and the enterprise side, you're essentially creating a very much like what a GPT would be, but you're creating a more sophisticated, what I call AI agent that actually has the facility to connect to your systems, be trained and tested, and also you have full access to all the conversations that are happening, not just with you, but with your entire team, which is a much more business-oriented version. So, you know, if we're drawing dotted lines, you know, we're talking about maintaining the same interface as ChatGPT, but making it more secure, and then creating the same kind of experience where people can launch very specific GPTs for a specific task or a specific role. But in the case of making them AI agents, again, being able to have full transparency and share it with amongst your organization very easily in a secure environment. So these are the ways that we've kind of been able to bring the enterprise all the things that they want, but they don't offer or lack within the ChatGPT by default. So
one thing on that too. So when we've started working with some of these bigger clients, I think one of the takeaways is that you have some companies that start to talk about like, oh yeah, we're already using AI internally, you know, and you and I had a conversation with a client just a couple of days ago on this. It was interesting to me to where the vision was, we're already using AI. We think you guys could be a gap filler, but we're already, you know, building something out. And they forget that transparency is now that specific dev team or that product manager is building out potential use cases for, you know, a very slim piece of the business. But every other person in there that might say, wow, that's really cool, I would love to use that too, now has to turn around and go, well, you can't use this because it's really only built for this piece. So we'd have to spend X money and take X amount of resources to build this now over time, versus you have this living model that's ready to go. And it's like, oh, Sally in accounting wants to do X with it. And it's like, perfect. We already know that everything Sally needs to know lives here, and now we're just building an agent that accesses the pieces needed. And then John over here in sales wants this, and it's the same piece. So that transparency of just organizational understanding what's being done, I think is important, but also the transparency of now someone being able to step in and just say, well, I want something to do X, not having to pull resources off to now build a very complicated model that is now just for Sally is extremely important.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you can imagine, fast forwarding, 6 months, 6 years, whatever, that every single employee will have access to some platform that allows them to build out an AI agent, one or more. One of the things that I saw a recent interview with the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen, and he basically said they are already, of course, they're the ones really driving a lot of this industry, but they already have hundreds of thousands of agents within their organization helping from a variety of tasks, whether it be writing code for their new chip, whether it be for technical support, whether it be internal operations. And he's seen, this concept of he can grow his business exponentially without having to grow his staff because he's augmented his current staff, his experts, with these power of the AI agent. So if you're any organization, whether you're a small business or a big business, you can imagine that you're going to have multitude of these AI agents that are specifically trained on roles and tasks to augment what you currently have as your team. And then within yourself, your team itself might have very personalized agents, right? So there might be a generalized sales agent that goes out and qualifies leads for your sales team. But then one of your sales people might say, you know what, I'm going to spin up my own agent using the same model in a secure environment that is going to generate custom emails for my leads that I've followed up with, but I want to tweak it. I want to make it a little bit different. I want to give it my personality. So there's these offshoots that are going to happen. And you want to enable your team to be able to do that in a very friendly environment that's drag and drop, that's point and click, that requires no code. So it's no different than empowering your team with computers. Like, I don't, this is way before my time even, which is hard to believe, but like there was probably a time, like, and this is an interesting parallel to make, but like there was probably a time where before computers were like default, what's in front of you on the desk, there was only maybe a handful of people in a company that had a computer, right? And then eventually they're like, essentially they said like, we should probably give everybody a computer. Like if everybody has the power of this technology in front of them, boy, they could 10x their work. If not just Jim has a spreadsheet, but if everybody had a spreadsheet, or not just so-and-so had a word processor, everybody had a word processor. And it's the same basic mentality here. It's like everybody should have the ability to create an AI agent to empower what they want to do, but it has to be done in an environment that is manageable, it's secured, and it's simple to use, that the company itself has full visibility and full control over all the agents that are being created, whether it be 10, 20, 100, or 1,000, because that's really where we're headed. So back to your point, which is an excellent point, which is this is not a silo singular solution. This is not like, we're doing AI. No, that's not how it works. There's many, many forms of AI within a business, some simple, some very elegant and nuanced, and some very, very large and capable, sophisticated deployments of AI. So, you can imagine.
You made a good point the other day too, of like considering it back to websites, right? Saying, oh, I already got a website.
Right.
It's like, yeah, but do you have a landing page that captures leads? Do you have a, this that does this? Like it's about finding a dedicated like role that needs to be handled and then building around that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
everything. Literally every piece of software technically is quote unquote a website, right? Your SaaS products are websites, your CRM is a website, your knowledge base is a website, your public website is a website. So it's the same misuse of that word of AI. Is like everybody needs to understand that the future is not 1-to-1 ratio, one AI per business. It's literally thousands, if not tens of thousands of AI agents that are working in kind of conjunction with the current business that you have deployed out, whether it be enhancing employees, whether it be running autonomously behind the scenes, whether it be connecting your multitude of third-party systems in your ecosystem. It's really that lever that you want to have, and you want to make sure that when you think about AI, you think of those terms. And this is not just us talking. I mean, this is literally just echoing literally every single person who's building out AI right now, whether it be OpenAI, whether it be, NVIDIA, whether it be
Yeah.
Facebook, they're all
Third
singing
parties,
they're all singing off the same sheet of music. The future is that you're going to have a multitude of AI agents that are doing singular, very fine-tuned tasks that might be autonomously running it, or with human in the loop, they call it, right? Where there's a human involved, checking off, making sure it's doing it right, approving it, and so forth. So it's an exciting future, but it's also daunting to think about without really thinking through, like, okay, well, how do I prepare for that, right?
Yeah, and one easy way to make, the visual for anyone that is feeling like, I really need it. If you use ChatGPT, open up ChatGPT and look at all of the threads that you have there. Would you take one randomly from 4 months ago and ask it a question on something you're working on currently? Probably not, because you've made adjustments to it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have any context of what you're trying to do in this specific use case. Like, I kind of had someone have an aha moment when they were thinking about it, and they're just like, oh yeah, that makes sense, because I literally start 5 to 10 new ones a day where I'm just asking it new questions about something that just came into my mind. I'm not going to go back to something that's completely unrelated and say, hey, help me with this. So having a dedicated agent, taking it farther than the GPT piece, but now an agent who's trained on your business, that its dedicated role is sales, support, marketing, accounting, product, whatever the case may be. You're not going to go into that and then ask it something it doesn't really have relevance on. You're going to go back to the agent that's dedicated to it, because it's just like walking into that department and asking the head of that department, I've got questions about X. They're going to be much more informed to give you the right answer than something just saying, well, I know Jim in sales and I could answer it for you, but why don't you just go talk to Jim?
Exactly. And there's a reason why you have, like, agents are going to follow that same kind of hierarchy that you have in a company, right? There's a reason why there's hierarchy in businesses. People have more experience. They're the ones you go to for the final answer. Agents will follow that same path. So,
absolutely,
there's a difference between going on to like a ChatGPT, uploading a couple documents and asking questions, versus like going to a AI agent that's been blessed by the support department, that's been trained on the entire knowledge base, that's been gone through training, gone through testing by a variety of people, including the person who runs the support team, saying, yes, this is the best agent to ask questions. It's answering at a higher accuracy than anything else. And now you're just prompting that existing agent instead of having to create some sort of conversation or thread on your own. So there's just, that big difference between the ChatGPT, kind of experience and then the enterprise experience, and I think finally, and that's, again, a great way to segue in. I think the components that make the enterprise also dramatically different, and is probably the most important part, and we talk about this all the time, and it's one of the reasons why we built out the platform we did, is really the training and testing component of it. So, everybody knows at a default that large language models, and ChatGPT is one of them, but all of the systems that work off large language models have the same issue, right? They're built on these very massive database of information and content that comes from the internet, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to have inconsistencies. You're going to have a lot of things that drive hallucinations. A lot of the problems that you have with AI is because it is trained on this vast lake of data that doesn't necessarily have any sort of context or correlation. As you move into,
and it wants to give you an answer too.
Yeah, of course.
It wants to help.
Right.
So the problem is that
But
if
it will
you
find
have
an
now
answer.
all of this knowledge, exactly, it's going to find
answer.
something, because it's like, hey, I did it, and you're like, that's not really what I wanted. But if that data lake is now extremely finite on your business, your relevancy score as far as what it's actually going to call back to is much greater than just the general scouring the internet or trying to piece together what it thinks might be good.
Yeah, that's correct. So basically, by default, the way that kind of the consumer-oriented ChatGPT works is that it has this massive, large language model, and it's going to find the closest answer to your question, right? It may not be what you want to hear. Plus, it's not trained on your specific company data. When you move into the enterprise side, what you're doing when you're building out an AI agent is you're giving all that information that's relevant to that AI agent, and you're giving it specific instructions. So you're not just letting the user prompt it alone. You're giving an existing, what's called an instructional prompt, and training that agent. Say, this is your job. This is the scope of what you can answer. And oh, by the way, we're going to give you volumes of information, data to add to your model so that you can answer those questions better. And the large language model almost becomes kind of like the I always use this analogy, but it's essentially their education. It's their PhD degree that they got in college. It's the ability for them to communicate, for them to correlate, to reason to some degree, to go out and find information and bring it together in a much more cohesive manner. Because you'll see that AI does an amazing job of creating 2 or 3 different pieces of information and literally tying it together, even though there's gaps in those connections. But now it's doing it in the context of what you've trained it to do. So there's a big difference between going into ChatGPT generic and saying, hey, my customer has a question about this product, da-da-da-da-da-da. And of course, ChatGPT is not going to have any idea what product you're talking about. And even if you uploaded a document or uploaded some other information, which may or may not be completely accurate, it's still going to struggle because it doesn't have former tickets. It doesn't have your knowledge base in entirety. It doesn't have past tickets that it's been trained on. Now move to the other end of the spectrum where you have an AI agent that has been trained on all those things, right? That has access to the knowledge base, been trained on past tickets, and understands what those nuanced questions that come in from customers that may not even be covered in the core knowledge base or product manual. Now you're talking about something that's trained up as a senior support representative would be, also has the broad experience of everybody's tickets and information that they've added to the support
all
system.
those interactions.
And now it's being told, hey, listen, your job is to only answer questions that are clearly answered. If not, then pass it on to a support rep. So you can see now the difference. So I think the goal of this, kind of outlining these 3 big components, and there's more, but these are the 3 big things that people don't understand or quite understand the difference between what I would call generic ChatGPT experience and the enterprise experience. I think what people want is that same beautiful, prompt.
Simplicity.
Type in the prompt and get an answer. And that you can have that for sure. You don't have to move into any sort of, the user interface can stay the same. However, what's beyond the user interface is quite different. It is not as easy you have to do some work and upload and train and build out your AI agents. And of course, that is where we built out our platform. It allows that you can do that without having to do a lot of coding or any code really. And you can do it in a context of like drag and drop and point and click and still get the power and best of both worlds. And I think that's, I think that's important for people to know, because when they start thinking, oh, wow, how do we, and I think a lot of people actually are hesitant and not necessarily understanding how to do this, but they go, man, I love this ChatGPT. There's a wow factor here and I'm using it myself, but they can't correlate. Okay, how do I now bring this into my business?
Take it to the next step.
Give it to my employees and actually make it work for them, because they may not be prompt engineers. They might not be up to speed on all the things that OpenAI or ChatGPT can do.
Yeah, of course.
But if you said, hey guys, I deployed 5 agents, a support agent, a sales agent, a financial policy agent, an HR agent, and if you want to talk to them, here's a ChatGPT experience, UI. And that's kind of, I think, what people want, at least at a starting point. And I think that's obviously what we deliver. But more importantly, what I think where everybody's headed is that's what they want in order for them to get the benefits of that within the business environment.
Yeah, ChatGPT did a great thing. Obviously, we've talked about this on other episodes too, where you got the consumer excited and invested and bought in on it. So the simplicity of what ChatGPT's interface is makes it very approachable no matter what your level of technology is. The 2 pieces that then need to become important for businesses are scalability, like how do I now take it, like you're saying, and implement it in bigger ways, and calling back to it again, the security aspect of now that I've scaled it and now that it's simple enough for all of my employees to be able to access and myself to be able to utilize, is it secure, and is it something that we know is now for us and not for, the greater training? And I think having those 3 kind of things covered for 99% of businesses is really where they should be looking at solutions. Like, is it simplistic? Is it scalable? Is it secure? If it's all 3 of those things, I should be looking at how I can use this as soon as possible, and not just, well, we can stick with GPT for now because, Joe over here in marketing really likes writing his blogs in there. Like, Sure, but there's a way to have that all internal and all crafted around your specific voicing that is going to be much easier for everyone to access than just having it segmented and scattered all across the board.
Exactly.
Cool.
Couldn't said it better myself.
I know. That's why I had to throw it in there. I was like, no one knows what he's been talking about. Let me bring it all back. But
I love it.
well, this is great. Well, for everyone that's been listening, thanks again for joining us on this episode. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button to stay in touch. Also, feel free to check out our Substack for more content, which we linked in this episode to continue the discussion. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care, everybody.
Takes the flow, Leah Rich on the mic, ready to explode.